In this video we're going to be comparing the Nintendo Switch Lite to the Switch OLED. We're going to be comparing the price, features and design to hopefully help you decide which console to go with. So the first thing to discuss when comparing these two Switches is the price. So as you probably already know, the Switch Lite is the cheaper of the two devices, coming in at around £200, whereas you'll most likely be paying around about £100 more for the Switch OLED, around about £300 for this device. So if you are on a tight budget, then the Switch Lite is a great device. You are able to play full Switch games on this console, even though it is tiny. Internally it does have very similar specs to the Switch OLED, but it is missing a few features that we are going to discuss in a minute. So for £200, the Switch Lite is a great console if you're just looking to play games in handheld mode, and it is a great device if you just want to chuck it in your pocket or your backpack if you want to go traveling with it. So we've established that the Switch Lite is a great device. The question is, do the extra features that you get with the Switch OLED justify the extra £100 price tag? So we're next going to be comparing the designs of these two consoles, starting with the Switch OLED. So the Switch OLED is the larger and the heavier of the two devices, and it's got a more traditional Switch design with the detachable Joy-Cons. So as you can see, you can detach the Joy-Cons from the main console, which is something you can't do with the Switch Lite. And this feature allows you to do a few different things. You're able to mount the display portion of the console on a table with the provided kickstand and play the console with the Joy-Cons detached, which in some instances might be more comfortable. And the fact that it comes with two Joy-Cons means you're able to give one of the Joy-Cons to a friend and play local multiplayer, which is something that you can't do with the Switch Lite. Another advantage to the Switch OLED is the fact that you're able to dock this console and play it on a TV, and this is a feature that just isn't present with the Switch Lite. You're not able to dock this. So if docking your Switch and playing it on the TV interests you, then I would consider looking at the Switch OLED. But if you are looking to buy a Switch to play it in handheld mode, then that does make the decision a little bit harder, because both of these devices play really well in handheld mode. When playing both these devices handheld, one thing to consider is the weight. The Switch OLED is the heavier of the two devices. I will be putting the weight on the screen now, and this is something to consider if you are planning on playing these in handheld mode for long gaming sessions, because you will notice the weight of the Switch OLED a lot more than the Switch Lite. And other than the weight, one of the most noticeable differences between these two devices is the screen. So the Switch OLED, it's in the name, has a 7-inch OLED 720p display, whereas the Switch Lite has a significantly smaller 5.5-inch LCD display. So in my opinion, even though the Switch Lite display is fine, the Switch OLED definitely has the better display. It's larger, brighter, more vibrant, and it's OLED, so it has better contrast, inkier blacks. That's not to say that the screen on the Switch Lite is terrible, but it's just not as vibrant, as bright as the OLED screen on the Switch OLED. Other than the display technology, both displays are 720p and 60Hz. So hopefully you're enjoying this video so far. I'm going to take this moment to do a little bit of self-promotion. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing. So if you are enjoying, or you want to see some more weekly tech videos, then consider subscribing. It would really help out the channel. And if you are enjoying, don't forget to drop us a like. Let's get on with the video. So I next want to talk about the whole Joy-Con situation between these two Nintendo Switches. And my opinion might surprise you, because I do think the Switch Lite actually wins in this situation. So as I've already mentioned, the Switch OLED has detachable Joy-Cons. It's a more traditional Nintendo Switch. This obviously has the advantage of allowing you to detach the controllers when the console is docked to your TV, so you can control the game. But in my opinion, this does have disadvantages when it comes to using the device handheld. The first disadvantage that I have noticed is that this connection between the console and the Joy-Con isn't the most sturdy. And I have noticed when I have been playing this device in handheld mode that there is a little bit of wobble between the Joy-Con and the console, which is something that isn't present with the Switch Lite, because it is a unibody design. It does feel more sturdy in the hand than the Switch OLED. So this might not matter to you, but the Joy-Cons between these two devices are actually more different than you might expect. First off, the Joy-Cons on the Switch Lite are actually a lot shorter than the Joy-Cons on the Switch OLED. And strangely, the buttons are actually very different to press. So listen to this. This is a button press from the Switch OLED. They're actually very clicky, whereas if you have a look at a button press from the Switch Lite, the buttons on the Switch Lite appear to be squishier and quieter, which is unusual. I can't say that I prefer one over the other, but if you've got a preference, they are slightly different. Finally, it is worth mentioning that the Switch Lite comes with a D-pad, whereas the Switch OLED doesn't. It just has individual buttons So if you are someone that does play a lot of fighting games such as Super Smash Bros, I am aware that the D-pad seems to be the preferable input device, so that is an advantage to the Switch Lite. I think it is just quickly worth mentioning Joy-Con drift, so that's something that has been plaguing the Nintendo Switch since release. I've luckily not experienced that with either of these devices, but if either of these devices were to develop Joy-Con drift, I would prefer it to be on this OLED because I can take the Joy-Cons off and replace them individually, whereas with the Switch Lite you have to get the whole device repaired, so that is something to keep in mind, but hopefully you don't have to deal with Joy-Con drift. So finally I'm going to talk about the hardware and battery life between these two devices. So in terms of performance, these both have the same specs, same amount of RAM, same processor, so performance between these two devices should be identical. That is something that's maybe more impressive for the Switch Lite, as it is a smaller device, that it has the same specs as the full-size Switch. So in my opinion that's quite impressive. The only difference in performance between these two devices is the fact that the Switch OLED can be docked, and when the Switch OLED is in docked mode it does slightly overclock the processor, which does allow this console to run at slightly higher resolutions when in docked mode, which is a feature that just isn't available with the Switch Lite. I am happy to say that I have been impressed with the battery life of both these devices. On paper the Switch OLED does have the significantly larger battery, but in real world use they both perform really well. You should be getting more than 4 hours on both these devices. If I did have to choose a battery life champion, it probably would be the Switch OLED. I think you'll probably get about half an hour to an hour more battery life with this device, mainly because the battery is so much bigger in this Switch OLED. Other hardware differences to be aware of is that I did notice that the speakers on the Switch OLED were significantly better than the speakers on the Switch Lite. The Switch OLED does have more internal storage. It has 64 gigabytes of internal storage, whereas the Switch Lite only has 32 gigabytes of internal storage. But it is worth remembering that you can expand both of these storages with micro SD cards. So in conclusion, which Switch device should you go with? The Switch Lite or the Switch OLED? The Switch Lite is a really good compact portable handheld gaming device, whereas the Switch OLED has more features, a larger, brighter OLED display, as well as better speakers, more internal storage, and the ability to dock it and play on your TV. The Switch OLED also has slightly better battery life, but on the other hand, the Switch Lite is more durable if you do want to take the device traveling, and there are less moving parts to go wrong. So if you're planning on chucking this device in the bottom of your backpack and taking it traveling, this is probably the device I'd go with. So hopefully you've enjoyed this comparison between the Nintendo Switch OLED and the Nintendo Switch Lite. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comment section below, and if you have enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button, consider subscribing. I do upload weekly tech videos, and I'll see everyone in my next video.